Have you ever suffered and been in such darkness, such pain, that you felt like you were drowning? Waves and deep, wild waters closing in all around you? If so, then you are not alone. Psalm 88. Adonai Elohei Yeshuati, Yom Tza'akti, Ba'layla Nigdecha. Lord God of my salvation, I have been crying out day and night before you. You have put me in the lowest pit, in dark places, in watery depths. Your outbursts of wrath have been lying heavily upon me. You have been afflicting me with all your waves. Can your wonders be known in the darkness? Your outbursts of wrath have been sweeping over me. They have been surrounding me like water constantly. They have been closing in on me together. The psalmist here is trying to find words to express his pain. And many of the words he chooses are words that express chaos. Chaos. Chaos and order. These concepts, chaos and order, would have been well known to ancient Israelites. The whole story of the Bible begins with a picture of chaos. The chaos before the order of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. This is the picture of chaos, darkness, and deep, wild waters. And it is this picture of chaos that the psalmist seems to choose to describe his own chaos, as if he himself is sinking in the deep, wild waters of Genesis 1, in the dark places and watery depths, afflicted by waves, in the dark region with God's outbursts of wrath surrounding him like water constantly. This picture of chaos brings us to the ultimate question of the message of Psalm 88. Many have said that this psalm is all about complete darkness and chaos. As one scholar put it, this psalm stands alone in all the Psalter for the unrelieved gloom, the hopeless sorrow of its tone. Even the very saddest of the other psalms admit some variations of key, some strains of hopefulness. Here, in Psalm 88, only all is darkness to the end. But is that true? Is that the message of Psalm 88? Only all is darkness to the end? At first glance, it seems so. Line after line, the psalmist laments his pain, and not just with words about dark, watery chaos. The psalmist has reached Sheol, gone down to the pit, among the dead, and the slain in the tomb, cut off in the lowest pit, shut in, and he can't get out. And this continues right to the very end. Afflicted and close to death, torn apart, alone and shunned by all his friends and companions. Surely only all is darkness to the end. But let's go back to the dark, watery chaos, echoing Genesis 1, and look at how the psalmist cries out to the Lord from this darkness. O Lord, God of my salvation, I have been crying out day and night before you. I have been calling to you, O Lord, every day. I have been crying out to you for help, Lord, and my prayer will keep welcoming you in the morning. In the beginning, Genesis 1 began with a picture of dark, watery chaos. But remember what happened next. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Order. Order out of chaos. And the order came in the form of light out of darkness, day and night, evening and morning. Day and night, evening and morning. Lord, God of my salvation, I have been crying out day and night before you. I have been calling to you, Lord, every day. I have been crying out to you for help, Lord, and my prayer will keep welcoming you in the morning. It's as if the psalmist is sinking in the watery chaos of Genesis 1, verse 2, and then cries out to God and reaches for the order of verses 3 to 5. As he sinks down into the dark, wild waters of suffering and chaos, all he can do is cling to the order of day and night, evening and morning, and cry out to the Lord. But there's more. If we look closely at these 3 verses that speak of night, day, and morning, we find that the final mention of the morning might contain a little hidden light in the darkness of Psalm 88. In these 3 verses, all the verbs look back at something in the past. I have been crying out. I have been calling to you. I have been spreading out my hands. I have been crying out. But suddenly, for the first time, there is a verb that looks forward. My prayer will keep welcoming you in the morning. Something has happened here. In the midst of his darkness, the psalmist has somehow been able to not just look to his past and present darkness, but to look to the future with a resolute commitment to continue to bring his prayer morning by morning to the Lord. He still doesn't know why he suffers. He still doesn't know how long he'll suffer, but he will rise up the next morning and his prayer will not stop welcoming the Lord. Now, this climactic moment of commitment is actually part of an intricate poetic progression. Close attention to the text shows a symmetrical, chiastic structure all the way from verse 7 to verse 19. The corresponding A sections both begin and end with words about darkness, and also have the repeated words alai, on me or over me, hirhakta, to cause the shun, and meyudai, acquaintances. The next layer between these corresponding A sections is the B sections, which both have matching words oni, misery, and ani, afflicted, and also multiple matching ni sounds. Then we have the matching C sections, which both speak of calling out to God in the day and the morning, with the repeated words elecha, the holy name of God, the Lord, and the matching sounds of shitahti, spreading out of hands, and shivati, crying out. Altogether, this creates a chiastic structure pointing to the central section of verses 11 to 13, which has 3 parallel rhetorical questions, all beginning with the Hebrew interrogative he, and is also enclosed by the words pele, wonders, at the beginning and end. Now, very often in Hebrew poetry, the center of a chiasm represents a key moment, a turning point of some kind. And sure enough, at least 2 features make these verses a turning point, preparing the way for the renewed commitment of verse 14. We can see the first feature by looking at how often the psalmist, in his suffering, focuses on himself. In almost every verse of the psalm, the psalmist speaks about himself. I have been crying out. My prayer, my cry, I am weary, my life, I, my, me. But notice that in verses 11 to 13, not even once does the psalmist focus on himself. All his focus is on the Lord, his wonders, his faithful love, his faithfulness, and on the dead, the tomb, but at least not on himself. And that brings us to the second feature, making these verses a turning point. Up to this point, words about death and darkness have dominated the psalm. Night, Sheol, the pit, the dead, the slain, the tomb. And words about the Lord, light, goodness are absent until verses 11 to 13. Do you perform wonders for the dead? Is your faithful love recounted in the tomb? Can your wonders be known in the dark region? Not only has the psalmist succeeded finally in taking his eyes off himself, he has also succeeded in speaking of the Lord and his wonders, his love, his faithfulness. And this creates a crescendo of tension between the Lord and death, between bright words about faithful love and dark words about death and the tomb. Before these verses, death and darkness were everywhere. But when the psalmist succeeds just in saying out loud wonders, faithful love, faithfulness, righteousness, even while he laments, it's like it begins to shift the balance. And that leads to the beautiful words, my prayer will keep welcoming you in the morning, Yes, in the morning. And from this point on, his lament changes. It does continue, but it is no longer dominated by the fear of death. There are no more words about death. So let us return now to the question of Psalm 88. Is it true that only all is darkness to the end? Yes, it is true. Psalm 88 does tell us that truly sometimes only all is darkness until the end. There is no healing. God does not answer. The suffering does not end. To say otherwise dishonors this psalm, with all its raw pain from the anguished cry of the first verse all the way to the dark loneliness of the last verse. And yet, perhaps the true message of Psalm 88 is not just that only all is darkness to the end, but that when only all is darkness to the end, there is a choice. I have been calling to you. I have been spreading out my hands to you. I have been crying out to you. Even when there is no healing, even when there is no answer, even when the suffering does not end, there is always a choice, to him or away from him. The psalmist chooses to keep coming to him, crying out to him with all his pain, clinging to the order of day and night, evening and morning, and remembering the Lord's wonders and faithful love, and choosing to keep welcoming the Lord with his prayer every morning. And for the one who makes that choice, yes, he might continue in darkness, but that darkness might become a darkness no longer dominated by the fear of death.